mining remains a key component of South Africa's economy. It accounts for 8% of GDP. You can double that if you include all the multiplier effects. We account for more than 20% of exports. You can double that if you include all the semi-fabricated products. We account for just under 20% of private sector investment in the economy, and about 1.3 million people have their jobs as a result of mining activity, whether directly or indirectly. Yet mining is not flourishing. Mining has been a sector which has been a bit under the cosh. You wouldn't say so if you looked at some of the share prices of the companies, but when you look at the production performances, when you look at the labor numbers in the sector, and if you look at our real GDP numbers, mining in real GDP terms in 2019 is smaller than it was in 1994, comparing apples with apples. A significant portion of that reason, and you can also do it on a relative basis, that mining has gone from about around about 15.9%, 15.7% of GDP. It's now sitting at about 8%. So the relative share has also declined over time as the non-tradable side of our economy has grown at a much faster pace than our traditional tradable sectors. But let's just have a quick look at the numbers. I mean, if you look at the gold mining sector, we've gone from plus 350 tons of gold production in the early 90s. We're now sitting at a level of just over 100 tons. Employment in the gold mining sector has also fallen off. And our non-gold mining sectors actually has exhibited a fair amount of growth in that period. I mean, let's face the reality that non-gold mining, whether you're talking about platinum mining, coal mining, chrome mining, manganese mining, etc., have all grown in the period. But they haven't grown enough to compensate for the fall off in gold production. I guess you can ask yourself, if you look at the gold mining sector, that where would we be today if Eskom hadn't pulled the plug on us in 2007? It's a really important opportunity cost issue because, in fact, and it's been one of our bugbears that we've been engaging government on, because in 2007 initially, and then on the 26th of January 2008, sorry David, I've got a memory that sort of remembers these dates. 26th of July 2002 is one that sticks in my brain quite well too. That was when the mining charter was first leaked back in 2002. But the critical point here is, if you look at what happened on the electricity supply side, Eskom initially pulled the plug on us, not government, Eskom did. And then Eskom held us to 90% of electricity supply availability compared to what we had been using prior to that. So effectively, Eskom made an industrial policy decision on behalf of government, because government was nowhere to be seen in that conversation at the time, to reduce our electricity supply, and it basically prematurely downscaled our gold mining sector. We probably lost 10 to 15% of South Africa's gold mining production was prematurely downscaled because of Eskom's actions and Eskom's flailings in the running of their own business. I think if you look at a number of other issues that we've been dealing with over the more recent period, issues around policy uncertainty, you've heard us beat that drum for some time. Logistical bottlenecks, we'll get to that in a moment, but logistical bottlenecks, I just want to highlight the point. When on the chrome side, I want to give you a practical example. On the chrome side, when you order 5 wagons, you get 2 from Transnet. We've been engaging with Transnet. Transnet are saying that 55% of the reason they can't deliver rail wagons to us on time for us to be able to export, and by the way, we are therefore exporting that chrome by truck at twice the cost with the damage to the roads. Transnet can't deliver those rail wagons because, and 55% of the reason is because of crime affecting their railway facilities, in particular theft of copper cables on railway lines, etc. And that's not just affecting the rail wagons. If the rail wagons happen to have product in it, if there's copper theft on the line, then the mined product also gets hucked along the way, so the crime issue is one we'll get to in a moment. Last year we had 19 attacks by, I would define them as armed insurgents on the mining companies. 19 with 20 to 40 armed people taking on mine security and trying to take over precious metals facilities and plants. We had several of our security people killed in the process. So we have been obviously engaging government on that issue, and I'll get to that in a moment. The electricity crisis has been profoundly impactful on mining, whether you like it or not. The lack of supply of electrons to the mining sector has been a major impact on our ability to actually not only sustain our productions or even grow our production. And then we've had a number of other issues related to the non-delivery of services by municipalities. I mean, effectively in many municipalities, the mining industry is playing a role in actually helping those municipalities to actually deliver services. The focus has to be on expenditure, cutting back on expenditure, and some sort of handbrake on the expenditure side is going to be necessary. We simply have to cut our coat as a country according to the cloth that's available. And business as a whole, not just the Minerals Council, we've been in discussions with the rest of business, are saying we absolutely have to have a budget that comes out very clearly articulating the need for fiscal austerity. Some people are saying, but you need to spend your way out of a crisis. We don't have the resources to spend our way out of a crisis. Because if you do, you're going to take on a lot more debt. That debt crowds out, the debt servicing costs crowd out all other types of expenditure. Historically, they used to buy 90% of their coal from tied collieries. It's now down to 60%. So spot has gone from 10% to 40%. But that 40% accounts for more than 50% of their costs. So spot coal is costing them more than their contract coal, and that was a decision that they made, not us. So to blame us and expect us to pay for that as users of electricity is quite an issue for us.
And the investment in the contract mines and the longer term mines were decisions that Eskom made, and they didn't make it, and these mines ran short on the supply that they needed to provide. So it's a convoluted argument that every time comes back to Eskom's decisions. So they ran into a real crisis in terms of stock at power stations at the end of 2018, and they were signing new contracts over time. But of course these things will take time before the benefits of reverting a little bit more back to the longer term projects will happen. The third part of it is the operational cost, and what is I almost want to call it infuriating is the fact that they overspend on people and they underspend on maintenance. So, I mean, the problems that we're having, part of it is because we haven't done the maintenance over long periods of time, but the RCA say that they underspend actually on maintenance. Now, there could be reasons for it, but you understand that that is nonsensical and illogical for us to then make good on that.